I was looking through my Dungeons & Dragons miniatures the other day, and I found the perfect servant of Mordramoth. Feed Missima! Howdy folks, and welcome back to another episode of Tyria Talk. My name is Richie Procopio, aka Otter, and this show is all about Guild Wars 2. Today is episode number 82, and today we're going to be talking about raids. Again, I have more to say on this topic. They actually just put out a new blog post today describing more information about raids, so we do have some new info. So I wanted to do another video about this. Obviously, raids is one of the things I'm most excited about the expansion, so I expect some more talk about raids coming up in the future as well. So let's just recap real quick. If you didn't watch the previous Tyria Talk episode, raids are coming in the Heart of Thorns. These are going to be 10-player instances. They're going to be... the rewards for doing so is going to be legendary armor for the first time in the game. There's going to be 3 wings that are going to open up. This is 3 sections of a larger raid are going to open up, and they're going to have different bosses and events in them. The first wing is going to open shortly after the release of Heart of Thorns to give players a chance to kind of level up their masteries and explore the new content. And then the subsequent wings will release at dates future, to be announced. There's also going to be no raid attunements. That is a set of quests or set of things that you have to do in order to get access to the raid. You're going to be able to just go right in without doing any kind of attunement process. And there's going to be no gear grind associated with like increasing your power level through gear as a result of raiding. So all of the content stays relevant. So that's all the stuff we kind of covered and spoke about last time. So I'm going to cover the stuff that we learned today in the blog and then give you some more thoughts that I've had mulling in my head since this announcement went live. So the blog post indicated that they're going to make use of the dynamic event system in these raids, and they're going to have different types of events that they already have the tech for. You're going to be able to do like holdouts, assaults, captures, and defense type events, and they said it's going to be on a scale or difficulty that we haven't yet seen before in the open world. They also said that they want the bosses to be like puzzles, and that your raid group is going to have to sit there and think sometimes, all right, you know what, maybe we need our warriors to take out a weapon that they don't usually use, or maybe the guardians are going to have to take a talent that's not part of the normal meta. You're going to actually have to tweak your builds, the weapons that you're using, the skills that you have equipped in order to tackle the bosses and counter the boss's abilities. So it's going to be kind of cool to see what we have to come up with. Maybe a particular boss has a lot of different knockbacks. Everybody needs a lot of stability. Those kind of things. They're going to be like little tweaks that you're going to have to do to unlock that particular puzzle and defeat that particular boss. So another thing that the blog talks about is how Masteries are going to interact with raiding. And in fact, when Colin Johansson announced raiding at PAX Prime last weekend, he specifically mentioned Masteries would be a part of this. Now we have a little bit more information about it. For example, the first wing itself, you're going to want to have gliding, and you're going to want to be able to interact with several different types of mushrooms for the encounters that are involved there. Now we don't know exactly how they would be used, but we do know that there's at least one boss that you're going to be jumping off a platform and then gliding, and so you're going to have some masteries unlocked, which is not quite the same as an attunement process, but it is a little bit of a barrier of entry. Like some people have been discussing this on social media and stuff like that and saying that, well, an attunement is really just like this extra set of things that you're not going to be doing anyway, that are just kind of like a gate, an artificial gate to block you from raiding. And that's totally true. That's typically what they are, and most people hate that kind of attunement. And in fact, that's one of the reasons I stopped playing WildStars. I couldn't get to the content that I wanted to get to. Whereas this mastery system, it's a good way to actually, it's a horizontal progression thing, and it's something you're going to be doing anyway, right? You're going to be doing the content, and as you just level up and doing events and doing your dailies or anything that's giving you experience is kind of working towards unlocking these masteries. And you're going to want gliding within the first hour or two of playing the expansion anyway, and you're probably going to want to bounce on mushrooms shortly after that. So while it is kind of a little bit of a requirement for raiding, I don't think anyone should be up in arms about that requirement at this point. Now, they did say there's going to be unmentioned raid-specific masteries. There's going to be like raid mastery lines that we don't even know any of the information on yet. And some of that is going to also factor into how far you can progress in the raids. And what they said was they wanted to be able to have new players be able to come in and help out for the most part. But there are certain bosses encounters that you're going to need to have at least one person in your raid to have unlocked in order to not get your face stomped in. So it's a little bit of a gating kind of issue, but I like the fact that it's, if your one person's got it, then your raid is set. I think that's kind of cool and okay. I will definitely reserve judgment until I actually see what the new rating tiers are. The trait lines, not trait lines, the mastery lines are for rating once they become public knowledge. The final thing we learned more about is the rewards. We learned that rewards can be gleaned. There's going to be special rewards that you can glean every single week, once a week, but you can keep doing the raids and help out other groups of friends or other guilds complete it. So there's no lockout per se, which is great news because some other games have those lockouts where it's like once you're saved to an instance, that's your instance for the week. You can't help any other group out. I like that that's more wide open, though you can only get the rewards once a week. It's kind of like how guild missions work right now. You can get your rewards for guild missions once a week, but you can help as many people as you want get their guild missions done. They also mentioned specifically that besides the legendary armor, which is probably the most exciting thing about this, there's also going to be unique weapon skins, titles, and they even mentioned mini pets that are going to be exclusively received from raiding, and there's also going to be the ability to take trophies from the bosses you down and decorate your guild hall with them, which is super exciting. I think that is a wonderful, wonderful thing, and it's one of the things that I was speculating and hoped that we would have the ability to do. Show off your guild's achievements in your guild hall. Perfect marriage of systems right there. Now, that's basically what we've taken away from looking at the blog post, but I wanted to talk a little bit about the group size for raiding, because I've had some conversations on social media about this, and it's also something that I was kind of hoping for before they actually announced what raiding was. I always said I want to see ArenaNet's spin on raiding, right? And because they tried to break the mold with so many different things when they came out with Guild Wars 2, and I love that their fresh approach on different things. And there's a couple things with what they've announced that is a little bit different. I mean, I love the fact that you're going to be able to raid and not have to worry about getting new gear off of these bosses, right? You don't have to have some sort of, I'm hoping you don't have to have some sort of DKP system where you track how many raids everyone goes to, and then when you get a piece of gear, have everybody, spend points and auction off these things because, the gear becomes this essential piece of being able to increase your character's power level to do next bosses. And also, that constant upping of your gear makes it so when they put out a new raid, all of the previous raids become obsolete because it gives out subpar gear. I like that all of the raids will be on equal footing in terms of, hey, we can, you can go do any of these raids because they're still going to be relevant and they're still going to be challenging. Now, but besides that key part, it's kind of typical raiding. It's instanced. It's going to be 10 players. It's going to be challenging and all that kind of stuff. But so there wasn't anything else that was truly kind of like a more Guild Wars 2-y way of doing raiding. One of the things that I wish they put in was some sort of flexible raiding system. This was something that has always been a pipe dream of mine since my days of raid leading in World of Warcraft. And I guess I was guessing for a long time that the development companies just thought it would be too difficult to kind of balance that. But the most recent WoW expansion, Warlords of Draenor, they introduced flex raiding. So groups of 10 to 25 people can enter the raid, and the raid will adjust the challenge level and the rewards based on how many people are actually there. And this is great because I was, sorry for the back itch, random back itch. I was raiding, I raid-led groups in World of Warcraft of 40, 25, 20, and eventually 10 toward the end of my career there. And it's always been a challenge figuring out policies on how to figure out who sits out and who gets to go in. And my guilds have always done a fairly good job of making it fair and clear. And, I'm going to be working once again in Guild Wars 2 to kind of figure this all out for everybody. But it's even if you have the best laid plans, there's still going to be it's still going to rub people the wrong way when they have to sit out, especially when a new raid wing comes out, and it's the new shiny content and stuff like that. It's hard to feel good about things when you're the one sitting out on the bench. And so I was really hoping that ArenaNet would come out and have some sort of flexible raid system. They can make it so that it's something like 10 to 20 players. Any amount of players in between that. And so that it is disappointing, and there's other people that have been talking on social media that kind of express that as well, because it's very un-Guild Warsy, right? And I talked about this a little bit in the last episode, but like Guild Missions has always been so great because it doesn't matter how many people show up. Everyone can play, and it doesn't matter, and it doesn't really matter who they are or what class they're playing or whatever. It's just any amount of people can play, and that's pretty much how the whole game is, except for some very 5-man dungeons, 5-man fractals, 5-party story instances. But generally, when you're roaming around the world doing a world boss, or you're going world versus world, PvP is restricted as well. But there's a lot of things in Guild Wars 2 where everybody is welcome. And this is it's going to be a little bit of a tough pill to swallow. Now, there definitely is a need for challenging group content, and there definitely is a need to have things that your group does together, like your guild can do together. And I definitely wanted raids to be instanced. I didn't want this to be open world stuff. We have enough of that, and there's a whole bunch of reasons why I think that you can get better, more challenging content out of an instance. But I do wish there was a little bit of flexibility there. And my guess is the reason why they didn't go for that, because I assume that they probably talked about it, because it's something that World of Warcraft made pretty popular, about a year ago or so. But my guess is it's just difficult. It's difficult to balance that, right? You need to have a lot of experience with these raid encounters, and this is the first time that they're attempting to have this level of challenging content. We know that they brought in extra people in order to kind of help with this endeavor. It's probably it's hard enough to make it the right challenge level for a group of 10, let's say. They want it to be difficult and challenging, so that then you're not beating these bosses on the very first time you try them, but at the same time you don't want to be banging your head off against the wall for months in order to take them down either. So there's a balance they have to do there, but you also have to balance the rewards, and you have to get that right as well. So maybe the loot is personal in Guild Wars 2 when you defeat this boss. Everybody gets to open up a chest, kind of like how Guild Missions is, but who knows? Maybe it's the boss actually drops a certain number of loot, and it's up to the guilds to distribute it, like I was kind of mentioning before with the DKP system. I hope it's not that way. I hope it's individual loot. But yeah, so I think that's probably the biggest reason is, if you're designing the encounter and there's going to be 10 players going against this, it's just easier to tweak things, and it's easier to test things. It's easier for ArenaNet to get a group of 10 players from their company together, but they have to test it from, all right, let's see what happens with 14 players. Let's see what happens with 16 players. Let's see what happens at 20 players. Are we just increasing the power level of the bosses, or are we adding new abilities at certain threshold levels? And it's not that these issues are unsurmountable, and it's not that I didn't want them to try to tackle this, but I could see this being the reason why, especially because, they need to get this out, and they want raids to be very successful, and the more experimental they go, the riskier it kind of gets. But that is my one regret with this whole system, is that now we are in a mode where we're going to have to see who wants to raid in the guild and come up with, all right, when it comes to that very first night, how do we determine who gets in and who gets out, and do we have enough people that requires a second raid leader, and are we going to be able to run 2 teams every week? And there's a lot of logistics that now falls on the shoulders of officers and guild masters that previously really wasn't. It was pretty casual and easy to manage thing, and then suddenly it's going to. It's going to ruffle some feathers. So that's my thoughts on raiding. I'm still super excited about it. It's still the feature that I want most out of Heart of Thorns, and I can't wait. I think there's a lot of things that they're doing right with it, and who knows, maybe down the road they will adopt some sort of flexibility to it. Maybe they're just going to start with this, and eventually they will roll over to that, because that would be super awesome and cool. But let me know in the comments below what you think about all of these recent announcements, and what do you think about flexible raiding in Guild Wars 2? Is that something you would like to see? Please leave me a comment in the comments field below. We are having a beta weekend this weekend. You're going to be able to try out some of the elite specializations that have been previously unavailable, like the Berserker and the Daredevil. If you want to get into the beta weekend and you have not yet already done so, you can pre-purchase the Heart of Thorns, and then you'll have access to the 2 beta weekends that are left. There's only 2. There's 2 of them left. And if you would be so kind to use my referral link when you pre-purchase, it doesn't cost you any extra and greatly helps me out and helps out my channel. There's a link to it in the description below. I hope everybody has a fantastic day, and I'll see you next time. Take care.